Hey guys, how's it going? Pixie here, and today I wanted to talk about a warrior world worker build. This is after the Specializations patch and is basically aimed at that. On top of that, major changes from like the, well, 1 year or almost 2 year old worker warrior meta build pretty much that we had. Basically, the big changes are, like I said, specializations, and on top of that, the stability changes, and on top of that, the condition changes. The stability is really a pain now, because the Guardian Shout isn't as great as it used to be. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So, I'm just gonna lay down the fundamentals of this build. This build is a worker build. What does a worker do? He is a support character. He makes sure that people get conditions removed. He makes sure that he can stand with the commander. He can make sure that he can res the commander. He can make sure that the enemy gets CC'd a lot. And he can also make sure that the enemy does not push into your own backline. That is what this build is focused on. That is what this build is supposed to do. This isn't a damage build. I don't see why you'd want to do that on a frontline character in World v World at the current state with the stability changes, but, you know, go ahead and be my guest. But this is not what this build is about. So, we'll start off with the gear. Now, first of all, for anyone who is completely new to the warrior profession and didn't play before the patch, I suggest you simply get soldier's gear on everything, and then as time goes by, you put in berserker trinkets on the side. Just as you go along, you put in one Zerg piece at a time, and then you see how it goes. As a rule of thumb, for any World v World frontline build, you want to go Zerker as much as possible without dying. However, that kind of changed now because, at least on my server, it's become really hard to survive. So if I go on my max toughness build, max survival build, which I have right now, I actually don't have a single Zerker's piece. But keep in mind that that might be different for you because I am playing on a different server. I'm playing on Kodash. I mainly play against EU #1 server Seafarer's Rest. So if you're playing on, like, I don't know, Drakkar Lake or something like that, it might be a lot easier for you to just put Zerker stuff into your gear. But I don't know what it's like on those servers. I just assume that it's a bit different and a bit easier because, well, I used to be on Drakkar Lake and I noticed a big difference. So just keep in mind you may go a lot more offensive than me. But again, keep in mind this isn't what this build is about in the first place. What your most important task really is to put down that war banner for your commander. Why? Because there are very, very few warriors out there right now, again, at least on my server, because it's just become a lot harder to survive as a warrior as opposed to a guardian or even just a backline player, because you don't have to deal with all of the problems that we have to. But having said that, I'm rambling again. Right, gear. What I went with is soldiers on everything with trooper runes and vital infusions as well because I have everything ascended. However, my chest and my legs are sentinels, which is basically soldiers, they're just with a vitality main stat. This really isn't necessary, but I really like sentinel stuff, so I went with this. With the new change in the Mystic Forge, you know, with the recipe that you can now change your old stuff, I just went ahead and did that for these two pieces. And, you know, as you can see, I have a nice amount of HP, and this just adds to it. So, weapons. I went with knights. Now, you could actually go even with Zerkers if you wanted to. You could go with soldiers as well. Like I said, if you're completely new, everything Zerkers, everything soldier, don't even pay attention to what I'm saying here, right? Just skip ahead to the specializations. yeah, I'm running with a Sigil of Fire. This is mainly so we have a flat damage increase somewhere, and we obviously have an AoE on our sword, which is nice to have. So this is whatever. Keep in mind that this is activating on a critical hit, so if you are going full soldier as a new player, I would recommend something else, because this only triggers on a crit chance. If you have full soldiers, you're gonna have 4% crit chance. This isn't gonna trigger that often. Now, and I guess I'd recommend, actually I don't know what I'd recommend, just, I don't know, force, I guess, something along those lines. Now, as a stacking sigil, I have superior sigil of perception. You can see that my crit chance is slowly going up. I do try to get to a 50% crit chance just because I like to see crit numbers. This isn't ideal, I will say that. Your main focus is survival. So you may want to go just full soldier on this as well and get other flat bonuses. In this case, I would get a bloodlust sigil instead of perception. Then the hammer has a plus 7% crit chance sigil on it. Again, because I want to have a 50% crit chance, and I actually get that while being extremely tanky. But again, if you are newer and if you're going full soldiers, you will want to take superior sigil of paralyzation, which, don't let me lie, will give you a 30% stun duration, which will increase your Earthshaker duration by a little bit. You know, which, you know, this doesn't require you to crit or anything, so. And again, the superior sigil of fire can be replaced with something like superior sigil of force. Then to the trinkets. Again, everything could be soldiers, but I am using a, I don't know what this stat combination is called. It's knights, but with precision main stats, so whatever that combination is called. And 2 soldier rings. And then I have 2 sentinels earrings. These are amazing. You can get these by doing Ascalon and Crucible of Eternity. If you get all the skins available from those 2 dungeons, you get these 2 earrings. Really, soldiers, again, is fine, is completely fine. And then I have a soldier's back piece. Now, like I said before, I have vital infusions on everything, and I have a mighty infusion on this one earring. As a small trick, if you are, if you do have a bit of understanding with infused equipment, you can actually have one ring infused with a defensive slot and have one ring not infused with a defensive slot, and you'll be able to wear both of them at the same time, allowing you to put 2 vital infusions into them. This is just a small trick, I guess. If you've been playing the game for a while, you probably know this. On my amulet, I have a magic find infusion. Blame me, I'm sorry, but you know, I want some loot, so you could put a vital infusion in there as well. Now to the specializations. I will try not to talk about the minor traits because they're all great, and I mean the video is just going to take too much time. But important ones to look out for are obviously fast hands. This is what makes this whole thing run. On top of that, keep an eye out on spiked armor. This thing is great. Gives you even more toughness. Gives you retaliation. Amazing. What we also have is, what is it? Yeah, adrenaline on weapon swap and might on weapon swap. So together with fast hands, just these 3 minor traits are amazing and will help you out a lot. Now, and this is basically, you will want to swap weapons as much as you can. Now, at least the way I play. Now, the first trait is Dog and March. This is really a no-brainer because these 2 traits are just not beneficial to us at all. This will reduce cripple, chilled, and immobilized durations and will give you regen, which will nicely stack up with your healing signet. The next trait is Defy Pain. If you want to go more offensive, again, if you are playing on a lower tier server, if stuff is easier for you, take Armored Attack. This will give you a lot more power. However, if you're having trouble, take Defy Pain. This trait is amazing because it doesn't force you to have a stance in your bar, in your utility bar. And having this up here means that you have an oh shit button as a full-on support warrior, which is great, because as soon as you put even one stance in here, to replace one of these two shouts, you are reducing your usefulness by a huge amount. If you go with something like this, you are not helping out your server at all, and you should be playing a backline damage character. Now, there will be situations when you can play like this, but I will come to that later on. Now, the next trait is Rousing Resilience. This is, again, if you are in need of Defy Pain, then you probably are also in need of Rousing Resilience. This trait is amazing. It will give you a almost 50% uptime on 1000 toughness, depending on how often your enemies are going to stun you. This happens to me a lot because most of the time I'll actually not have any Guardians in my group, or I just won't have a group at all. Or I'll have Guardians in my group and they won't even press their bloody Stability Shout. And on top of that, the Stability Shout, of course, is a lot worse than it used to be. So, this trait, Rousing Resilience, is great because you have a 20-second cooldown stun breaker, so you are gonna notice this a lot if and only if you are getting stunned, knocked back, whatever, a lot. Only then. If this does not happen to you, do not take this trait. Take Cleansing Ire instead. This will remove a condition whenever you use a F1 skill and will basically just add to all of your condition cleanses. So, Last Stand has a very kind of niche spot. If you are using Defiant Stance, which is really a preference thing, in my opinion, I don't think that Defiant Stance is bad in any way. It's just not my cup of tea, and I recommend Healing Signet, especially now with the resistance that you get. So, however, if you are using Defiant Stance, you may want to consider Last Stand instead. Just putting that out there, but most of you people are going to take either Rousing Resilience or Cleansing Ire. Discipline. Warrior Sprint. This trait is not that great for the movement speed because we don't really need it. We already have swiftness, you know, we don't need this. However, the removal of Immobilize is great because you're going to remove Immobilize when you Savage Leap, and you're going to remove Immobilize when you do an Earthshaker. So this is really great, and it allows you to get out of spots as long as you're not hard stunned, you know. Hard CC'd, so yeah. And of course, everything post-patch, everything that will cripple, chill you, or immobilize you will not affect this Savage Leap any longer because the chill and cripple no longer affect the distance you jump, basically, with a leap skill. And immobilize would actually still keep you in place. However, you remove and immobilize when you use a leap skill, so this is completely removed. This, your number 2 skill on your sword, will be immune to absolutely everything, apart from obviously hard stuns. If you get just stunned normally, if you get knocked back or something like that. But for everything else, for every soft CC out there, you don't have to care. So this is a very nice thing to keep in mind. Then, Destruction of the Empowered. By the way, I'm not talking about these other two traits because they're not really useful, but if you want to use Vengeful Return, be my guest. I think it's a complete waste because if you go downstate, you're probably going to die anyway, so I don't see the use in this, but you might disagree. Destruction of the Empowered. This is amazing because we are going to have boons in World v World. After all, you know, it's World v World. We are going to have boons, we are going to increase our damage. I'm not saying that you're going to just spam these skills, by the way, but, you know, just to demonstrate that we do get boons. Trust me, we do. We also get retaliation, we get stability from other people without using our Doliac Signet. You know, we get stuff. We get vigor, we get swiftness, we get boons. Don't worry about this. This will proc, this will be up a lot. Brawler's Recovery. You may want to consider this if you have serious trouble with conditions. However, I do not recommend it, but you may disagree and you may choose this. This is really up to you. Personally, this will give you a lot more damage. Now, Merciless Hammer is your go-to skill here. This will increase your damage on the hammer by 20% most of the time. Because if you actually get the chance to hit someone, Again, most of the time they are going to be slackers, they're going to be stunned, they're going to be in your bomb, and you will be able to get this 20% damage increase on them. And on top of that, you also, of course, have your own stuns to play with. So this is an amazing, amazing trait. However, heightened focus is also really, really interesting, and if you are someone who stays on the sword and warhorn set a lot more than on hammer, which, you know, this is a playstyle thing. I don't judge anyone who does that. The stuff on this set is also great. You do have some CC. Sure, it's soft CC, but it is CC, so you do provide stuff and you have Condi cleanses. If you do hit your auto attack a lot, then you may want to consider heightened focus as well. This is really up to you. Tactics. Now, if you are a horrible, 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 horrible person and you run with sword axe, you will want to take empowered because quick breathing will not help you at all. But with the current state of World v World and the amount of warriors I see, which is about, I don't know, 3 in a Zerg of like 50-60 people, take a warhorn, take quick breathing. You want that perma swiftness, you want that recharge, you want that condition removal to go out, you want that vigor uptime, you want that weakness uptime. Warhorn is amazing for World v World, Jesus Christ. You want to pick this, and this is not useful for Zerging anyway, or not as useful. You may want to use this for some reason if you like to see people get immobilized for 1 second when you use Hammer Shock, but take quick breathing, just do it. Empower allies. There really is not that much to say here. This trait is absolutely amazing. It will give yourself 150 power, and if that's all you care about, then there you go, that's 150 power for you, but you know, allies will get this as well, so this is even better. Shrug it off. You may want to take this if you have another warrior in your party. However, at least what I am seeing at the moment, I don't even see another warrior just by clicking through everyone in my Zerg, so you will probably not use that. However, maybe stuff will change and in the future there's going to be more warriors, so you may want to consider this if you have, again, someone in your group that already has Empower Allies, because this doesn't stack, obviously. This is, well, we don't use a longbow. Vigorous Shouts. Now, this is probably the most important part of this build. This trait will reduce the recharge, it will reduce the adrenaline, and it will give you a stupidly low amount of healing, because sadly you no longer get 300 healing power by traiting into tactics. So this is the trait itself didn't get nerfed as far as I know. You just have less healing power than you used to have before, and that reduces your healing. So yes, this isn't that great. However, if you Shake It Off, if you get that Rousing Resilience, you get 2,100 healing from Shake It Off, which is actually more than it used to be before, so that's great. However, this 1,000 healing is only for yourself though, so it's still not amazing. But the point here is Phalanx Strength is not useful really in World v Worlds. Powerful Synergy is interesting. I played with this a little bit, but you just want to take Vigorous Shouts because it will give you adrenaline, which you need. You really need that adrenaline from the shouts to use your F skills, because we don't have a single trait that like increases the adrenaline that you get. This is the only one that somehow gives you adrenaline apart from just combat normally, so you need this. And on top of that, you have a tiny amount of healing. Don't use your shouts solely for healing. It's not great anymore. But use it for the boons that you get. Use it for the condition removal that you also have with the Trooper runes, of course. You are going to remove conditions for Great Justice. Well, one condition, you're going to remove 2 with Shake It Off. You're going to remove 1 condition with Charge that is not chilled, immobilized, or crippled. If you are crippled, immobilized, or chilled, and you have, for instance, a bleed on you as well, it will remove all of those conditions. The cripple, immobilized, and chill removal is not affected, or it's not affected by the condition removal trait in that way, if that makes any sense. Which is great. So potentially you can cure 4 conditions with this skill, or 1, depending on what's going on. Call to Arms will also remove 1 condition, and it will give you Vigor. please, please, please use this skill smartly, because it is also a blast finisher. So you really have to pay attention here. It will give weakness to enemies, it will give vigor to you, and it will do a blast finisher, and it will remove a condition. You have to be smart in the way you use this. Same goes for Earthshaker. This is a blast finisher, so you will want to use this to blast water fields or whatever is needed. Keep that in mind. Having said that, I already said this before with the resistance on the healing signet. If you are in serious trouble and all of your condition removals are on cooldown, use the active of healing signet when you are at, say, around, if you are really low as well. You don't want to use this when you have like 25k HP and like a bunch of conditions. You don't want to use it then regardless, because the healing is just stronger. But if you're really low and you have a ton of conditions on you, press that button. Don't be afraid. The resistance helps you out a lot, and it will help you get out of situations. And on top of that, you have that Defy Pain. Don't forget this. I mean, if you picked that before, this will help you a lot as well. Now, Dolyak Signet. I really don't recommend using Balance Stance, and I'll tell you why. Number one, it only gives you 5 stacks, which if you need stability in anyway in the first place, you will need more than 5. And if you don't need stability, then this will give you a passive. Yes, the only downside of Dolyak Signet is the recharge time, which is slightly longer here. But trust me, you don't need it. You don't need that shorter recharge, because most of the time this will be enough. It won't happen that often to you that you will have to spam stability in a 40-second interval, if that makes any sense. If you have trouble just with Dolyak Signet, what you do is you do this. Like I mentioned before, you just swap out for Great Justice with Balance Stance. This isn't great. I really don't recommend running this. Normally you will not need this, because you're gonna have at least one Guardian who will every now and then brain AFK, press his bloody stand your ground, which will give you stability. If that's the name of the shout, I'm not sure, but yeah. Don't use this unless you really, really have to. The moment you put Endure Pain into your utility thing, that's the moment you become useful. I am just putting that out there. Do not use Endure Pain or Berserker Stance unless you, unless you seriously have some problems. Do not use stance skills. Well, apart from Balance Stance like we just discussed. Generally, this is what you'll want to run with. Like I said before, Defiant Stance is also interesting and okay. If some people prefer that, that is absolutely fine. Mending, I really don't recommend this. This is absolute poop. To the Limit is also not that great. It does give you 7,000 healing if traded. It will give you a full amount of adrenaline, but it's not that great. Once again, 24-second cooldown. No, you don't really need it. Battle Standard. I will explain in great detail why Signet of Rage is not good in Worldview World, and why you absolutely have to take Battle Standard. If you're not interested, skip ahead. You don't need Swiftness. Alright? You have Swiftness. You have a Guardian putting down his light field. Like, you press this button, one Guardian puts down a light field, that's it, perma Swiftness. You don't need Swiftness. Might? You don't need Might. We talked about this. This is a support build. You're not going out on damage. It's nice to have an extra stack or 2, or well 5 of Might in this case. You don't need it. You're gonna get Might from Guardians, you're gonna get Might from Fire Fields, you're gonna get Might in other ways. You're gonna have to rely on allies. You don't need this Might. 5 stacks aren't gonna make a huge difference in the first place. Fury. This is probably the main reason why some people would want to take Signet of Rage, because, you know, in PvE we have Permanent Fury and it's great. It is great, I'm not saying it's not great, but you don't need it in World v World. You have almost 50% uptime for Great Justice on Fury. You don't need this extra stuff, because if you're going full on soldiers, you're gonna have poop hit a crit chance anyway. You'll have, well, you'll have 20% flat, which is what I have on my other set. So you're not gonna get that much from this Fury anyway. If you are running the way I am, which is focusing on getting up to 50% precision, crit chance, you don't need it either because you actually get there without using Fury or without relying on permanent Fury. So you don't need this. And probably the most amazing argument at the moment is there are not enough warriors in World v World right now. Use that battle standard, revive that commander. That's your like #1 most important thing to do. That is your most important thing to do. If you have more warriors, you obviously will want to go through like counting down your banners, like having a like saying that you're battle standard #1 and then another warrior will be battle standard #2, and then you can say when you throw them down in TeamSpeak and whatever. Obviously, you can do that as well. But if you're not in TeamSpeak, if you're, I don't know why you wouldn't be, but say you wouldn't be in TeamSpeak, the commander is going to be your #1 priority target no matter what. Because usually if the commander is going to go down, there's going to be 5 people around him anyway. Unless you really have a strange commander or a strange server. So this is the commander oh shit button #2, basically. When your commander goes in downstate, you press this, alright? Good, that's that for the utility skills and everything. Buff food, I recommend you get bowls of poultry and leek soup. This is going to give you -36% condition duration. There is a -40% condition duration buff food. However, at least on my server, that buff food will get thrown down by commanders anyway. So I will just press F on that and have a superior buff food. But if, for instance, I join into World v World and they already took that and the pot disappeared, basically, I can still have my own buff food that doesn't cost a ridiculous amount. So if you want to go all out, then of course you can get the -40 condition duration buff food. I don't remember the name, but you know, if you know that it exists, you probably know the name as well. And yeah, this will just reduce condition duration even more and will give you extra vitality, which is great. The other thing I use is quality maintenance oil. If we can... Okay, it doesn't want to show up. Right. This will give you extra precision. Now, again, if you are going full soldiers, you don't need this. You will want to take sharpening stones instead. Those will give you more power and will benefit you a lot more. But, again, if you're going for that 50% crit chance like I am, you may want to consider maintenance oils. Like you just saw, they aren't really that expensive. If you're horribly casual and you're just trying out Warrior and 20 silver is too much, and your server doesn't throw down anything, which is kind of unlikely, go ahead and get mango pies, because it's better than nothing. However, it's not... you shouldn't run this unless you're horribly casual or whatever, or you just want to try out the class, which is fine. You know, it's fine to try out a class, but if you're playing seriously, don't use mango pies in World v World. The only reason I have this is because of PvE, because again, it's better than nothing, but a lot of other stuff is better than that, so keep that in mind. And that's it. If you actually watched through this, thank you for listening to me ramble, and I guess I'll see you some other time. Bye.